Hello today. Those of you out there in Radio Land, we want to welcome you to FYI. This is the AM show, and my co-host today is Dr. Scharron Clayton. And Dr. Clayton, reintroduce yourself, and I don't want people to take things for granted or to get information wrong. So people are accustomed to hearing you and your show and your voice over the air. But this morning, take a few minutes and tell us something about Scharron Clayton. Even as a child, the family you come from and that kind of thing before we have to get into all this other stuff.
You know, Lou, you really, good morning to those of you listening. Lou Porter is so slick, I tell you. She's just a wonderful on-air personality here, and Waterloo is extremely blessed to have her. I don't talk about myself often.
Right.
And but for those who know me, some people know I'm from Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And some people know that I grew up in a single-parent home in the inner city of Cleveland, Ohio. Mm-hmm. My dad was a career Navy person prior to the split of my mom and dad. So I grew up in a household with a very strong mother, very principled mother, mm-hmm. Value-laden home, where there was an extremely strong emphasis on learning to read, school as a means of, an education as a means of advancing oneself. I'm the middle of three children. I have an older sister and a younger brother. This is probably more than you want to know. When I was 4 years old or so, I used to stand on the corner in my neighborhood and wait for my sister to come home from school. Because for me, looking at the school across the street was like a beacon on a hill, and I couldn't wait until I could cross 2 streets to get into that school. Also, as a child, because we were limited to no income, my mother took advantage of everything in the city that was basically free. Mm-hmm. Library cards were free. Visiting the museums were free.
Yes.
Going to the Phyllis Wheatley Association, where you could join clubs like the Travel Club or mm-hmm. the Art Club, that was also free for us. We were able to take dance. I studied dance and I studied piano and mm-hmm. violin as a child. My mother's idea was that idle hands were basically the devil's workshop.
Yes.
So we were never idle. The other thing that I remember as a child is having to be creative. Now, when Lou and Jimmy tapped me for this show, for the radio station, they really tapped into something that was noticed when I was in elementary school. I enjoyed talking, okay? I finished all of my work so that I could talk. In fact, I was called... my teachers had a nickname for me, and I thought it was something very, very nice, but it was really something indicating that I interrupted people because I would be so excited to talk. As a consequence of that, Mrs. Bowman, who was the elementary school principal, decided rather than to punish me for talking, she put me in charge of every assembly that the school put on. And so my oral communication skills began in elementary school. Mm-hmm. You like to talk? Okay, you're going to be the MC. If they were producing slideshows, I would do the voiceovers with my little voice. And mm-hmm. so elementary school was extremely important time. I met some of my mentors in elementary and also in middle school. So that, it's just trying to let the audience know that my life began as a very busy child, and it continued through my schooling and my adult years, because being able to contribute and being able to be involved was just a part of my life. I could say the things I did in high school and the things that I did. One of the things that people don't know about me, if you look at me now though, was that through studying dance and music, I also used to write a lot of poetry. So the artsy side of my brain was very important to me. People don't know this. I was a cheerleader from grade 6 all the way through college.
Wow.
So I was able, and I also toured with a little dance company when I was in middle school. We danced in Detroit and Philadelphia and other places. So, you know, I just had an active life. So that's the stuff that people don't know.
There was a very good reason for me asking you to do that, and I thank you for it. It's leading into one of the topics that we want to talk about this morning, and it has to do with violence. Now, for everything that you have said today points to abject failure. Where you came from, you should have been totally a failure in your life. But your mother, and you can't talk about children, without talking about home life and parents and what they get there and so forth. So you are one of the examples of, yes, single mothers can raise children. They do it all the time.
Absolutely.
And I know President Obama will talk on this subject. It doesn't bother him to bring it forward. Right. There is Reverend Jesse Jackson is the product of a single family. And there's someone right here in town who, if you don't say anything about single mothers, and their inability to raise children, because Robert Smith will have your neck if you do that. He is so, respectful of his mother and what she did for him and what she gave him, and a product of the fact that, yes, it can happen. There are many, many, many women raising their children and raising them well.
And women have done this from time memorial. You know, when you think about the way that the black family was split, even during that period of enslavement, the women were rearing those children because the families were split up in many instances. Women have the power and the foresight to contribute to the development of the child in ways that I think people have underestimated. You know, in our community, people want to talk about the black matriarch who's taken the place of the dad. It's not even about that. It's about the love and nurturing and the wanting of that child to succeed. In my neighborhood, there were probably several single-parent households, and all of those kids in my neighborhood, people who were expected, if you just looked at the neighborhood, we weren't expected to go any place. People could drive through the neighborhood and look at us as if we were living in caves or something of that nature. And I have numerous friends who went on to professional school, to get advanced degrees, to do any number of things. Of course, there are people on the other end. But if you buy into what people tell you about a single parent household, then you will become that. If you hear it often enough and frequently enough, then actually you begin to play that role. And I think that that has happened to single parents, to some single parents. They've thrown their hands up, and our kids are not necessarily being monitored or put into situations where they can experience success, feel as if they're competent to do things often, you know, and it takes a lot of energy. You know, in the city, we had to ride buses every place. We didn't have cars, you know. We didn't even have a television until way down the road, you know. When we got the first telephone, that was like incredible. But we had a radio.
Oh, yeah.
And we learned how to tell stories. And we learned to listen to these stories. I mean, we had popcorn in the radio like people go to the movies and get popcorn, you know.
That's right.
But our imaginations were sparked by that, you know, our ability to visualize, you know, was pretty strong. We didn't have Game Boys, you know, we didn't have the technology. Shoot, I was happy when I got a Royal portable typewriter to go to college with, you know.
Well, you know, when we talk about these things, and we look at our own situations throughout the country, and in Blackhawk County and in Waterloo and surrounding areas, we will find that there is violence that we're facing that we've not been doing a very good job of. There is been attempts to educate parents on the importance of what do you expose your child to. For instance, video games. Who's watching that child, and what is that child watching? And when both of those are absent, that child could be watching anything.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They see all of this violence on TV. These video games where you can kill people and do all kinds of sadistic things. These children aren't even old enough to understand what it is they are seeing and what that means. It's just fun for them, just bam, bam, you know. So I think that education, if you don't have an education and you get into a circle that is mostly of a violent nature, that will lead to, and we know this is not an overstatement, that will lead not only to failure, but in some cases, death.
Yeah, you know, we have to remember, and let's think about these video games. What technology has done has become the new babysitter.
That's right.
And the replacement for parents in many regards. The military uses many of these video games to train the young people who are going on to become the fighters and the soldiers that you now see in Iraq, in Afghanistan, those who were in the Gulf War. As we expose our children to this kind of violence, actually we're preparing our future folks who will join the military as an option, because their brains are being programmed in a particular way. And I'm not hallucinating. There have been several studies regarding the exposure of children to violent video games, and then perhaps what goes on in their lives afterwards. This is not a good idea. For those dads and granddads who like to sit down with the little boys to play the video games and who will expose them to this, I would encourage them to remember what they were exposed to when they were growing up. They were outside playing baseball, playing catch, doing things with either some kind of coach or some kind of other male. So why are we not putting our kids out in those kind of situations rather than sitting them in front of the television with a video game and then wondering why they're gaining so much weight? Because they're not out. It's self-defeating. It's easy though, isn't it?
It is. It's very easy. And our Waterloo Police Chief, Chief Chalpa, was on the air, and he was talking about guns and how they find guns many times when they're maybe didn't start out to find them, but you stop somebody for speeding or whatever, go on a search, and there were several guns that he mentioned in this one instance here in Waterloo. Long-barreled guns, handguns, all of that kind of stuff.
Where do they get these guns from?
That's the question that came up, and most of them, Chief Chalpa tells us, are stolen. Most of those guns have been stolen, used in burglaries and that kind of thing.
Around in the same area?
Yeah, or in the
or
city
just
as a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
The amazing thing was these kids are nothing but young kids with access to guns. And I was told you can walk out of KBBG right now and go out on the street right here in Waterloo, and you can buy a gun. I mean, can you even, we think about Philadelphia, New York, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, this is Waterloo, Iowa. And yes, you can buy a gun.
On the street.
On the street, illegally.
I'm just sitting here going, what goes through your mind that says you need
a gun.
We're in a gun society. Let's admit it. When Obama came into office, people were running out of bullets. They were running out of guns.
That's right.
Because the NRA, the National Rifle Association, or whatever it is, there's such a huge lobby for the gun and munitions industry, and also some of the big money people who are donating to our political environment are really executives in the munitions industry, and so it's really tied up. But we should not be surprised then, I guess, that these guns are